So November 27th, and we've got a number of stories to get into today. Sorry, I haven't been able to do as many videos. We've got massive power outages here in Kyiv, with Russians striking the power plants, and there's only about 5 hours of electricity per day, so I do them as I can do them. This room I'm sitting in lit up like a Christmas tree the other night with the whole city was lit up by missile strikes and drones. It was pretty crazy. But that is Russian culture that is metastasizing into the free world. Number one story we got to get into today is the top banker in Russia calling for a devaluation of the ruble. I'm going to get into the historic precedent as to why deception will be a major and integral part of the entire process as this USSR 2.0 project comes to its natural endpoint. I've got several other stories. We've got the largest employer in Russia now begging for a Russian government bailout. They employ 700,000 people, the largest employer in Russia, the same company that announced mass layoffs just a month ago. We've also got the story about the Avtovaz, the number one car manufacturer, now announcing further mass layoffs. There's a whole city that's based on their largest factory. This is a major employer in Russia, also saying that they are now going to commit to another program of mass layoffs. We've got the manufacturing sector, Russian Central Bank and Rosstat data out tonight showing absolute catastrophic numbers coming from the manufacturing complex, not just in cars, but everything from tractors to buses to internal combustion engines, you name it, and the entire manufacturing complex is spiraling. Got a number of other economic data points, but let's go ahead and start into this ruble devaluation. This is German Gref. This guy's been around forever, powerful guy in Russia. He runs Sberbank, the largest bank in Russia today. And here comes the ruble devaluation, which Putin will deny until an hour after it happens. Other than Putin, the most powerful man in Russian banking, German Gref today stating that the ruble is overvalued by approximately 34% and would be weak and should be weakened to around 105 rubles per the dollar. And these numbers that they go into in the article, this is out of interfax.ru, mainstream Russian media. It's now on everything. It's on Commercent and everything right now. It's not being covered that much at all in Western media. Hopefully you will tell your buddies at Bloomberg to start covering this. This should be a major story. This is aimed at the Russian domestic population. They are starting to boil the frog to let the Russian population sort of know what is coming in a very incremental sort of way. And just to give you the historical precedent for this and how this will surely go, with news that that Russia's most powerful bankers are pushing for a ruble devaluation, here's Boris Yeltsin assuring the world that there will be no ruble devaluation just 72 hours before the ruble devaluation. This is August of 1998. As you remember, the spiraling Russian collapse of the 1990s. And here's Boris Yeltsin about the devaluation. Now everyone is debating whether it will happen or not. Everything depends on one phrase from you. No, it will not. There won't be a devaluation? No. Are you sure? I'm completely sure. There won't be a devaluation. 72 hours later, there was a devaluation. I am not making this up. It is not my imagination. It is not that I simply don't want to. Everything is calculated. It is monitored every day. It is daily work and daily control. In these authoritarian regimes, everything is about the perception of control, the semblance of control. Even when something crazy happens, to show that it was never an accident, everything is always planned. So there is no thoughts of pitchforky endings for the regime. And this work will not go on without control, he says. And I don't think that the collapse of this USSR 2.0 project is going to be any different. All the Russian elite, when he was saying this to the press and to world media, everyone knew. Archives later revealed that everyone knew that there was going to be a ruble devaluation, but all the elites were getting their cash out of Russia and into normal currencies. That's what happened, and I'm sure that is exactly how this is going to go. They were letting the population slowly know about this, so to manage a slow downturn. Russia's economic optimism index hits lows only matched by COVID, the Great Financial Crisis, and 1999. Question, why will this be way worse? Because back then, Russia wasn't engaged in an unaffordable war and no one was bombing the core of the economy. They are referring to the Russian oil industry, the Russian electrical grid. That's why this is going to be way, way worse. $500 million a day in outflow to fund this war. And as you can see, just in case I'm covering up the graph here, this is what we're looking at. This is now. This was COVID. This was the great financial crisis. And this was 1999 when people were drinking cologne in the streets all across the Russian hellscape. And that is, this is data out only in the past 2 hours, you guys. I just added this right before I started to do this video. Further, Russian economic data, absolute death spiral here. October production, year-on-year statistics department. That means Rosstat. That's the official statistics agency of the Russian hellscape. Tractors down, production of tractors down 47%. This is for the month of October, year over year. Elevators down 35%. Internal combustion engines down 42%. Production of passenger cars 47%. As I mentioned, the largest producer of cars in Russia. I'm going to get into detail on that story in a second. The production of buses down anywhere from 25 to 40%. Avtovaz already switched to a 4-day work week from September 29th. But as I'm about to show you, now they are engaged on yet a further round of layoffs. I'll show you in 1 minute. The Russian economy, this is on the budgetary front. The Russian economy continues into full collapse mode with federal budget revenue falling 12% year over year. And here is the Russian budget. Once again, let me move this so you can see where we are at right now. And just take a look at this. We are now down 12% year over year. This is the total income coming from taxes, from all forms of Russian government income now. And remember, expenses are only going up. Expenses are absolutely rocketing into the stratosphere while Russian government income is doing quite the opposite. And on Avtovaz, the largest manufacturer of cars in the Russian hell state, Russia's largest car manufacturer continues to spiral, announcing mass layoffs amid collapsed sales. Moscow Times a few hours ago. Avtovaz will sharply reduce production and cut workers' wages by almost half due to the collapse in demand for Lada cars. Yes, news is just getting better and better. Russia's largest auto manufacturer, Avtovaz, is preparing to have production and cut workers' wages by a similar amount amid declining sales. Yes, and more good news. There's the articles. I'm not making up any of this stuff here. And more good news is also on the horizon. Russian Railways, the largest employer in Russia, is asking the government to bail it out with the sovereign wealth fund that is already empty. Snake continues to eat its tail, folks. Russian Railways employs 700,000 people and is much more than trains. It is a slush fund of companies in all sectors of the economy. At the beginning of the Putin's regime, Russian Railways became a slush fund for Putin to sort of throw any company in there that he wants. It's everything from foodstuffs to security to defense contractors, anything you can imagine. Telecom, it's all in Russian Railways. So there's no better barometer for the Russian economy than Russian Railways. When they say they need a government bailout, that is the Russian economy that is needing a bailout. And speaking of bailouts, folks, we've got the finance ministry itself. This is 2 days ago, and I forgot to cover this. Public finance reserves are exhausted. The Ministry of Finance stated that it is impossible to balance the budget without raising taxes. Oh, but they are about to raise taxes. They are raising taxes and have, and I'm going to get very deep into that in a second. The Russian government has made difficult decisions to raise taxes because all public finance reserves that allowed it to balance the budget have been exhausted. Deputy Finance Minister Kolychev announced this at the Priorities of Russia's Socioeconomic Development. Side note, in authoritarian regimes, that's what you do, these long titles like Priorities of Russia's Socioeconomic. Everything's given a long name, so by the time you get to the end of it, you just sort of give up, but it again gives a semblance of control. Wow, they must really be in control if they got a name like that. I mean, with like 45 syllables. As reported by RIA Novosti, that's a Russian mainstream media. But here's the kicker, you guys, that you're going to like. He stated that over the past 6 years, budget expenditures have increased 16.6% to increase of 16.6% of GDP to 19.7% of GDP, including and including due to defense spending, which has reached 30% of the budget, a record since Soviet times. And we know how the Soviet times ended, but they still commit on every front of the economy, societally, propaganda fronts, everything. They're committing to every aspect that doomed the USSR collapsed for a number of easily identifiable reasons, right? Everyone knows this. And they have committed to all of them now. They are all there. I mean, the devils are all here. It's only getting worse and worse. And on taxes, yes, the Putin regime raises taxes on population up to 50% to pay for the war. It's an article from yesterday, adding to the blistering pace of new taxes on the Russian population, which has seen tariffs on automobiles hiked over 300%. Russia has entered a new phase of economic extraction as the Kremlin deepens its wartime spending. From July 1st, 2025, taxes for housing and communal services across the country have risen by as much as 50% this year in some regions. In some regions, increases now approach and even surpass 50%, marking one of the steepest public cost hikes of Putin's rule. And they are going to loot. Then it just goes into which regions have been hiked, to what extent each region has been hiked to, as the Putin regime tries to scour under every rock to pay for this increasingly suicidal war. And meanwhile, Putin is in complete delusion phase. This is only from 2 hours ago. This is Putin today. It's a few hours ago. The gargoyle midget, as my term of endearment for the gargoyle midget czar, says that if Ukraine retreats, they'll stop fighting. And this clip is good because somebody actually dubbed it in over English, dubbed it in English, so you can hear it for yourselves.
We are getting suggestions of stopping fighting here and there. When Ukrainian troops will leave their positions, that will be the stop for the war. If they're not going to leave their positions, we will fight them.
So you understand that the only path that Putin has now is for the U.S. to pressure Ukraine into, well, at the point of a gun, essentially, by threatening to cut off all the intelligence that Europe is buying for Ukraine and all the weapons that Europe is buying for Ukraine. United States is donating nothing now. This is all coming from Europe through this PURL program, the PURL program, buying everything and then giving it to Ukraine. Putin may be delusional on the economy and where he sits in terms of what the longevity of his position is in this war, but it seems he is starting to realize that his only path to any sort of victory in holding power and not facing the pitchforks of an angry and very poor Russian population is to get the United States to hand over, is to force Ukraine into a surrender situation. And further mirroring that, Putin's foreign ministry yesterday coming out and confirming delusional Putin regime confirms that they will continue the war at current trajectory until Ukraine's surrender. Russia has no intention of making any concessions regarding Ukraine. That's from the Russian Foreign Ministry. Moscow insists that it will achieve all the military objectives of the special military operation. Yes, this is it. Now it's getting just comic book level. With the Kremlin now running U.S. foreign policy, having lured Trump's team with promises of Russian riches, it's all about assuring Ukraine firstly agree to Russian demands, and only then vague discussions with the Americans for nonsense security guarantees that never happen. Trump thinks that he can do to Ukraine what he's been doing to construction contractors for the past 40 years. And I've tried to make this channel apolitical, but this recent Witfokk scandal clearly shows that Trump merely sees Ukraine as an obstacle. Witfokk sees it merely as an obstacle. And now that Jared Kushner is involved, we know this is merely about money. They want Ukraine to sign anything on paper, and they'll do anything to force Ukraine to sign anything so they can take off Russian sanctions. You can get American money going into Russia and Russian money going into America. This is not for the American people. The American people are going to have all the money is going to be stolen, by the way. Ask guys like Bill Browder. We know how every Russian investment boom always goes. Here's the headline itself out of Kyiv Independent. U.S. to discuss Ukraine security guarantees after peace deal is signed. Rubio tells allies. Trump may be telling this to Rubio, and Rubio may be naive enough to then parlay it, that is his job, to the world press. But that we know how this is going to go. Secretary of State Marco Rubio assured allies during a November 25th call that the U.S. plans to address security guarantees only once an agreement is reached. So Ukraine has to first agree to Russia's list of demands, and then maybe they can talk to the U.S. about security guarantees. So first, give up the heavily fortified portion of Donbass, essentially the Great Wall of China that is now protecting Europe, and first give that to Russia, which gives them a clear shot to Kharkiv, Kyiv, Poltava, Odessa, anything that they want, and then just go on Putin's word and go on Trump's word. Two guys that have zero history of ever being trusted ever, right? And Ukraine's supposed to adhere to this. Luckily, European allies now understand what is going on. Another of Europe's nightmares and Putin's dreams comes true. Trump forcing Ukraine to sign all Russia's demands and only then discuss U.S. security guarantees. We have allies. The headline. This is just before the main story came out. Allies worry U.S. demands Ukraine deal before security guarantees. And now, so Europe is in a state of horror right now. The halls of Europe are in a panic because they now understand that Trump doesn't care if the war actually is over. He really just wants to get sanctions off. He wants to get in bed with Russian money, and he's willing to sell out. Maybe something he doesn't understand, the post-World War II, the 80-year post-World War II security architecture that has prevented World War, and they are now willing to get rid of that. So Kushner can add some bees to his already burgeoning bank accounts and crypto accounts. Another Russian information operation busted up in France. Russians were organizing fake protests against Ukraine and appearing on TV talk shows promoting Putin regime disinformation. Right now, Europe is finally doing a lot, especially Poland, Finland, France, Germany, to root out Russian propagandists. They were going on television and they were staging fake protests. And I wrote, sadly, the Americans still do nothing about this in the States. And I am sad that America is not taking this seriously yet. I mean, Bloomberg had Dmitry Trenin until the early days of the war. Dmitry Trenin was an FSB guy, and nobody knew that until the war started. Just Google him, Dmitry Trenin, and he was Bloomberg's go-to journalist to talk about anything. He's an FSB guy who was, if you want to talk anything Russia on Bloomberg, anything Ukraine, and it was always a series of Russian narratives, Fortress Russia, Russia's positive balance sheet, a series of Kremlin talking points, Nazis in Ukraine, all the things that helped a lot of people in the business community come over to the side of Russia for a little while because he was a legit guy. He was on Bloomberg. And then we found out he was FSB. And there's a number of people in journalists, in positions of high-powered journalist positions all over the West right now. And I'm just glad that Europe's doing something about it. And I would hope that our American friends would do something about it as well. With Trump now eager to hand Putin's war machine, Ukraine, its resources and strategic location, all Europe's preparation for the coming war will not be enough to save millions of lives. A Russia with Ukraine's resources will be difficult to stop. And now Europe is starting to wake up and realize that they need to get, almost 1 million guys together and get them to the Russian border ASAP, because it looks like, like I said, there was horror in the halls of the European power structure right now. Nobody believes that U.S. is an ally after this Witfokk scandal. Hey, on a lighter note, so let's talk about this. This is from Russian media this morning. The epidemic of wild boars continues to expand in Moscow. This is a real story from Russian media this morning. You can go to the Mash Telegram channel, mainstream Russian media, with an estimated population now at 500 to 650. The dangerous animals roam the yards of residential buildings and can attack people at any moment. According to Russian media outlet Mash, The population grows, with boars searching for new territory while moving out of the forest closer to people and food sources. Hunting and culling pressure make them feel safer near the city. So the boars are moving in. Yes. Currently, the most dangerous period is the rut. Yes, folks, you got to watch out for that rut. Males become aggressive, run at speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour, and can cause serious injuries. Residents are advised to stay away from the animals and immediately report any sightings of wild boars to the authorities. And like I've always said, this collapse of the USSR 2.0 is going to make the collapse of USSR 1.0 look like an episode of the Teletubbies. I took out the music here, but here's just some clips from Moscow. These pigs are running all over Moscow now, and there's so many jokes I wanted to put in here, but you can put them in when you take the PIG word and then it's brought into the same sentence or phrasing with Russians. It might get me in trouble. So you can put them in the comments. So I've got no problem with that. Anyway, here's the wild boars taking over Moscow. Yes, take that wherever you will, guys. I just want you to understand that it's happening. And at least, I guess these Russians have a food source for the first 3 weeks or so after the currency devaluation. And on a more serious note, as you know, this apartment building in Ternopil was intentionally targeted by a Russian cruise missile. The other day, we had a massive attack here 3 days ago, and boy, it was a bad one. But this apartment building in Ternopil was targeted, and it's really, really bad, folks. That's the building, an apartment building where Russia massacred 33 people in one strike, including 6 children, and that's before another child died today, and that child was this girl. She stayed alive for 9 days, and the doctors could not save her today. Murdered by Russians, Adriana Unolt, 12 years old. Doctors fought for her life for 9 days, but today she succumbed to her injuries. Her mother also died. Her sister still clings to life in the hospital. The 35th victim of Russia's missile attack in Ternopil. And this, guys, is Russian culture, and Russia is murdering people every single day as they metastasize themselves and their culture into the civilized world. And it is only Ukraine that is keeping them out of the civilized world at this point. And so tell your friends that this stuff is still happening. And yeah. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today.